grateful, faithful are you. We thank you, dear God, that you've brought us to this place and you've charged us with such a responsibility. We thank you for the Honorable Minister Tashira joining with us and the time that she will share with the people of our nation and the diaspora. We pray, dear God, for your guidance of our sharing and our questioning, and we pray that you be lifted high. We pray that our technical matters also be dealt with by your power. We ask these things in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, and
Amen.
Pastor Lowe. And I just want to extend a special good evening to everyone. I would like to extend this special good evening to our viewers on YouTube and Facebook. We're glad to have you. But most of all, we're glad to have as our special guest tonight, the Honorable Minister of Governance and Parliamentary Affairs in the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, the Honorable Gail Tashira. This evening, I have two friends and competent moderators who are going to be interviewing the Honorable Minister. We have with us, firstly, Mr. Ricky Etwaru. Mr. Ricky Etwaru, personify typical Guyanese. I've gone to Teachers College with him. I went to university with him. And from my interaction with him, he has always been authentic as a Guyanese, and he has never treated me any way different. He is an entrepreneur, an educator. He's also a realtor. With him, we have Mr. Robbie Rajagado. Mr. Robbie Rajagado is also an educator. And the Honorable Minister will be glad to know that Robbie worked in NIS in New Amsterdam for several years before he matriculated to university like Ricky. These guys are well qualified with their graduate degrees. And Robbie is also into finance, as well as he's connected with the Caribbean Association in Texas. We're glad to have you, Mr. Robbie and Mr. Ricky. Over to you as you introduce the Honorable Minister and lead us through this evening proceedings. Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you very much, Pastor Clinton, a very good friend of mine from way back when we both attended Guyana's premier Teachers College, Cyril Potter College of Education. Thank you very much, a friend, a close friend of mine. For our viewers online in Guyana, in the diaspora, we have the great privilege to have in our presence the Honorable Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance, Honorable Gail Tashira, in our presence. For those who don't know her, she is probably one of the most prominent faces in politics, in my view, in the Caribbean. She has fought for democracy in the Caribbean, and it is my understanding in South Africa. She has been in the current PPP for as long as I could remember, spanning decades. Her presence here could not be more appreciated, seeing that she has been selected to be here by His Excellency, the President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Dr. Irfaan Ali. Honorable Minister, it is indeed a pleasure, a plum-pleasing pleasure and a privilege to have you on our program.
Fine.
And we will have a great discussion. I know the brevity of time we have doesn't hope.
Yeah, we can talk later. I'm in the middle of the meeting, so we can talk later.
The brevity of time does not diminish the importance of what we will talk about. And so for now, welcome, Honorable Minister. welcome our viewing audience in Guyana and around the world. I will now pass this on to my co-host, Mr. Robbie Rajugadu, for the first question to the Honorable Minister.
While we wait, could I just say a few words to thank you for the invitation to be here? I just wanted to thank the Society of Adventist Academic Performance for the invitation to be part of this forum, and particularly on behalf of His Excellency the President, and to say how honored I am to have been asked to represent him. One of the issues when I look at the topic, and the topic is very important, role of religious and political leaders in promoting ethnic unity, healing, and reconciliation in Guyana, I think one of the important things that we need to discuss is context. Context is important, as assumptions when used can be incorrect when compared with the actual facts and history. And I believe we need to have an honest dialogue on ethnic insecurities, where one has to separate reality from perception and opinions, as well as identify honestly who or what is stoking these insecurities in order to be able to discuss how to deal with them. As a politician, I've been in politics from the age of 19. I won't over 50 odd years. And like all politicians, we belong to a political party or movement whose philosophy we support. Just like religious leaders, you assume that you belong and uphold the beliefs and texts of the religion, and you're guided by these religious texts and practices. But politicians have to be grounded in some political beliefs and principles. If they're not, they're buffeted by moment-to-moment reactions and blowing in the wind like sand, unpredictably. In your topic, you talk about political leaders, but I just want to make a comment that all political leaders and all political parties are not the same. Political parties have their objectives and their principles, and there are liberal parties that deal with democratic rights, social democratic parties, and then you have right-wing parties that deal with issues that may conflict with human rights. And you also have organizations that are terrorists, that their view is to create civil strife, etc. So that the view that political parties are, politicians are the same is debatable. But the other issue too is that in principle, morally, as politicians, particularly in the modern day world, is that we're there to be change agents, to be there for the betterment of our societies. We are morally obligated, as I think religious leaders are, to be able to bring change for our people, to remove injustices, to remove inequalities. And so I wanted to say that in the beginning, and just to add that the party I belong to, the PPP, is now 75 years old. It's the oldest political party in the Caribbean region. And the People's Progressive Civic, which is an alliance which was created in 1991, is now 34 years old, and it has lasted. It's the only alliance of its kind in the world. It is not a coalition at all. It is not a coalition of political parties. And it's a living example of the objective of national unity and alliance politics. And I thought I need to clarify that because people sometimes don't know what PPP Civic is per se. It's not a coalition of parties. It's a combination of a party with individuals who support its programs.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say those few words in the beginning.
Yeah, thank you for the clarity there, Honorable Minister. While we are waiting on Mr. Rajugadu, for our viewing audience in the country, in Guyana and around the world, just for put this out there, we want you to know that we have reached out to all the political candidates that are running for election this September. We have reached out to Mr. Hughes. He is yet to get back to us in terms of his participation. We apologize for not reaching out to Ms. Simone Brooms, but our platform is open. I reached out to Mr. Mohammed Azruddin, and we are yet to hear something in the affirmative if he wants to be a part of our platform. Tomorrow around 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. right on this very platform, the Honorable Miss Amanda Waldron Desir will be here. And also, she's also a presidential candidate. Also, the Honorable Mr. Aubrey Norton will be here. So we want to make sure we reach out to all the political candidates, presidential candidates, to be a part of our platform, the Seventh-day Adventist Academic Performance. Well, I love the word performance, Honorable Minister. It's professionals. So
My apologies. I bet that in my
I love the word
typing, I
performance.
typed it. I made the mistake in typing. I'm sorry. My apologies.
That's all right, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, the question for you while we are waiting on Mr. Raju Garu, the question that I have for you relative to race, racial and ethnic unity, racial reconciliation in Guyana. What has your party, I mean, the PPP Civic has been in power for 5 years, and they're asking the population, they're asking the citizenry of Guyana to vote them for another 5 years. That's politics 101. Based on what has the PPP Civic done for the last 5 years to encourage racial and ethnic unity, racial reconciliation, and harmony among all Guyanese people? The floor is yours, Honorable Minister.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think we have to deal with what are certain realities, and that is that the issue of ethnic insecurities rather than racial division is an important point to make. There may be ethnic insecurities based on historical facts, such as under colonialism, the treatment of persons who were of color, Black, Indian, Amerindian, mixed, etc. And of course, during the Burnham era, the discrimination based on party paramountcy with regards to persons who were particularly Indo-Guyanese and also Amerindian. So that there are cases of what were discrimination. We also saw during the 2015 to 2020 period, the issue of the number of persons who lost their jobs in the public sector because they were thought to be politically incorrect and thought to be PPP supporters, and happened to be majority were Indo-Guyanese, but they weren't only Indo-Guyanese. Afro-Guyanese were also terminated, as well as the 1,972 Amerindian community service officers who were fired in August 2015. We have to go from that background of where there were rigged elections and where people's votes didn't count in 1968, 73, 78, 80, 85, until the first free and fair elections. And what we have done as a party, and in particularly in the last 5 years, is to deal with the insecurities of our people by ensuring that the programs we bring about benefit all, and that everyone can access this. So when we talk about our manifesto of 2020, this was the transformation for Guyana at all different levels. And we demonstrated how people would benefit. And the promises we made in that document, and even more than what we promised, have been implemented or in various stages of implementation. One has to look at what if one dealt with this academically, what would be the reasons why people feel that they have ethnic insecurities? Would it be access to jobs, access to training, access to housing, access to healthcare and education? What we have done, particularly in the last 5 years, is to expand the social programs to make sure that the poor and vulnerable, and particularly those who are elderly, youth, women, single mothers, Indigenous people, have access to these services. Because we must admit there were geographic disparities, and there are still challenges as a country to get the services to every corner of Guyana. For those of you who may be familiar, many of the hinterland areas take a long time to get to, cost very expensive to reach there. And so the programs we've introduced were not under the title or a rubric of ethnic insecurities or ethnic divisions, but in terms of removing what were doubts that people had that they couldn't access certain services. So we didn't bring in any new taxes, for example. During COVID, every household in Guyana got COVID relief, that is financial relief, as well as, and we have the proof for that, the data on every household it received. It was audited, people signed, etc. We also gave out hampers and so on. So during COVID, where many people were marooned in a sense and didn't have jobs, we were able to bring relief. But we have to also recognize that the programs of health and education, we're one of the only countries in the Caribbean region where health and education is free. In 1992, when we came into office, the IMF did not like us being there very much, and they wanted health and education to have cost recovery. And Chelly Jagan, as the then president, resisted it. And we have maintained that position up to now. Why? Because the fundamental rights of people to have education, to have access to being from nursery all the way to university, as well as their right to be able to have health care, that they would not be denied health care because they can't afford it. And so, and I think you know what's going on in the States, the United States, on some of these issues. We're the opposite in terms of people's access to free health care and free education. The housing program, which was started by us, when in 1992, the majority of people were living below the poverty line. 60% of the population in Guyana was below the poverty line of $1 a day. And there were 20 people living in one house with one faucet, one latrine. I think if you were in Guyana those times, you might remember how some of the villages were and how people lived, but even in Georgetown. So the housing program opened up the National Housing Program for low-income people to be able to access land and to be able to build their houses. This has continued and expanded in the last 5 years, where we have distributed not only houses that are built for low-income families, but also those where people would want to build their own, and included low interest rates with the banks, etc., so that people could afford to build their own houses or to borrow money to buy from the government housing program. You know, we have to, so the social programs are there, the increase in the old age pension, the new programs we brought in terms of every baby that's born, the mother gets $100,000, and even if the baby for some reason did not survive, she still gets the $100,000. The fact that every child now you can claim for $10,000 on your income tax, which was never there before. The cash care program for every child in school, whether private or public, getting $50,000 and $5,000 for uniform allowance. These are a range of social programs to help people to deal with their cost of living, to be able to have an improvement in the quality of their lives. And it's across the board. So we have not, the way we look at the issue of ethnic insecurities is that to ensure that the programs, policies of the government are open to all, accessible to all, and there's no discrimination in accessing those. There are those who claim that there are, but there are no figures, no data, no examples to show for that. One of the issues I think we also have to deal with is that the majority of the public service and the sector and the disciplined forces are majority Afro-Guyanese. That has not changed from 1992 to now, except with an increase in the public sector of persons who have Indo-Guyanese descent and Amerindian mixed, etc. So, but the majority of the public sector and the disciplined forces, including other sectors of the society, remain dominated by Afro-Guyanese. So that when one claims that there's discrimination, where is the discrimination taking place, or where are the insecurities? The fact that over the last 5 years, we have seen an increase in the purchasing power of our people. People complain now that there's too many cars. But the fact that there are too many cars is that people can afford to buy one now, different levels, different types, and that we have now more cell phones in Guyana than the population. These are examples of purchasing power and being able to live a better life. 40, 30 years ago, to have a fridge in your house or a television meant you were very middle class. Now these are normal things any woman setting up her house expects to have. A stove, a gas stove, and a fridge and a television. Whereas years ago, these were almost unattainable and only for those who were in a wealthier bracket. So that we have brought the services and expanded them, in some cases using technology, in using different platforms to make sure that people can access the services. We still have to spend a lot of money in delivering the old age pensions out to the far interior areas so that people are able to get it. And in fact, in the interior areas, they get their old age pension every 6 months. So they get 6 months in advance in order to help people who are elderly. We also have the disability program for all the children and adults who are disabled. They are put on a special program for a stipend on a monthly basis. So we're trying to ensure that the most vulnerable in our society, single mothers, for example, in terms of a number of programs to assist them, particularly training programs. So we have the Guyana Online Academic Program, GOAL. We have the Board of Industrial Training. We have WIN, not WIN as a D's party, but WIN, WINN, which is a women's network to do training of women for skills. And so over 80,000 people have been trained in Guyana in the last 5 years with skills that will make them marketable, will make them be able to have jobs and or to create businesses, small businesses. Over 2,000 small contractors have been created across the country, allowing them to compete at the local government level, communities, and in the regions. And so the expansion of these programs and the breadth of them to reach as many people as possible so that they can benefit and access improved quality of life. And so, because we have to remember all the time where we started out from, and the period from 92 to 2015 was not an easy one. We had violence, we had violence in elections, we had the global food crisis, we had the global fuel crisis, we had the crime wave of 2002 to 2008, and we were in worse countries in the Latin American Caribbean region. We are now the fastest growing economy probably in the world, and now.
You're breaking up there a little bit.
And so a lot of the programs, in terms of developing ethnic unity, and reducing feelings or perceptions or reality of ethnic insecurities, we have been working assiduously in terms of ensuring that these programs are accessible to all and that there's no discrimination in regards to that. Okay. So if you have a house lot already, you might not get another one if you apply, but if you're a first home owner and you apply for house lot, you will be able to get one under the program. So I think that when we look at the issue that is before us at this forum, and this is where I guess academically and philosophically, the issue of how does one develop trust and confidence? Because that's what it's about. It's about trust and confidence. If people feel they don't trust the government, they don't trust the leaders, then they will find that they will see by their own examination where the things are not working or where they feel that they are left out. One of the hallmarks of this government, particularly under President Ali, has been the visibility and accessibility of the president and the cabinet. The president is out there meeting people at the community level, and where at those meetings, issues are raised. There's no government, no country that problems don't take place. Something goes wrong. People haven't done what they're supposed to do in the public service or whatever. And at those meetings, those are fix-it meetings where those issues are addressed. So people are being listened to, they're participating, and they're being included. And that's an important context to
Okay.
do with feeling that one is part of this one Guyana. And that is the one Guyana concept, which began after 2020, is innovative, it's new, and it's also unique. It is the first time since independence that we as a people look at ourselves as one Guyanese instead of looking at ourselves in a divided way. And so one Guyana allows us as a people to feel pride that we are Guyanese, but also to retain our identity, our ethnic identity. So it is not
Thank
trying
you.
to make everyone look the same. It's about our individuality, our ethnic individuality, but also recognizing that despite all of that, and in spite of all of that, we can be unified as one Guyana.
I appreciate that, Honorable Minister. I am glad you mentioned that all politicians or all political parties are not created equal. Certainly, a political party that is not a panacea for all human problems.
I'm
And
sorry, I'm
so,
not hearing you well.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry,
thank you. Yeah, thank you for that,
I'm not
Honorable
hearing you
Minister.
well.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me better?
Yeah, I wasn't hearing you well.
Oh, it's certainly,
Yeah.
yeah. What I'm saying, thank you for adding some clarity to that. That you had mentioned earlier that not all political parties or politicians are created equal. Certainly, not one political party is a panacea for solving all human problems or all problems in our community. Now, you had mentioned the word "one Guyana" against the backdrop
Yeah.
of a fractured political process in Guyana. I have listened to the videos and I've seen the news and seen the report, and it's evident that it looks like uh, it's us against them. It's them against us, and we can't get along because of the nature of our politics. We have different worldview. We look at Guyana in a different way. Um, it is our view, and it's probably you will concur with me, that you won the general election in 2020 based on the one Guyana you just mentioned. You
No, we
won it,
didn't actually. One Guyana didn't exist. One Guyana
or,
didn't exist
or
until
a
after
coalition
the
of the young
2020
people,
election.
a coalition of the young people. They got
Yeah.
they got together, and you have won the conscience of the young people in Guyana. If
Yeah.
if the PPP win the next election, would we see a reflection in your administration of the diversity of our country? Would we see a reflection in government of the diversity
Yes.
of our country? And can you
Yes,
go
and you
ahead?
have that already. I mean, you have that already. The cabinet is ethnically diverse, and it represents the ethnic makeup of Guyana. I'm one of the minority of the minorities in the cabinet, but I am nevertheless there as a one of the ethnic groups. But the cabinet is a reflection of the ethnic diversity of Guyana. And if you were to look at all the ministers and the agenda and so on, they reflect that. The state boards, the different constitutional commissions, these all reflect ethnic diversity. In fact, one of the areas where did not reflect that, and which has been an issue, was GCOM in the 2020 and pre-2020 period, which is a critical position. But the point is that ethnic diversity is reflected in Guyana by a number of layers of society, including what are community programs and community meetings. And if you see the rallies that we're having, they're certainly not all one ethnic group. When we began in 1950 as a political party, we were a party of all the ethnic groups. And that was split and damaged by external forces in 1955. It has taken us a long time to win back the confidence because race was used as a division. And the race card has in some cases, in some parties in Ghana, that's all they have is the race card to separate people. The other point I want to make is that the point you made about fragmented, we have to be careful when we're dealing with the issue of fragmentation. And what is that? Where is that? We have in Guyana now a parallel stream going on, a parallel process going on. One, the popular stream, which is the people who see a government that is bringing change and which they're benefiting, regardless of their ethnicity. And you have another stream, which is the political parties and certain elements in civil society who play on the race card. The ordinary people in Guyana are not interested in that. They're interested in, can I get my house lot? Can my children finish and go to school and go to university? Can I afford to get a house? Can I afford healthcare and education? Can I get a better job? Can I improve the quality of my life? This is about the people of Guyana want this. So you have two streams that are not running parallel to each other. They're in fact, in some cases, going in divergent directions. Fragmentation of the political parties and within the political parties is a reality, and we've seen that in these elections, where people have left political parties, joined new parties. That's their right to do that. But what was the parliamentary opposition is no longer united and no longer clear on what it wants to do. And so you have fragmentation is more at the political party level and amongst politicians than among the people themselves. And you can go into any community, every community in Guyana, something's been done. Every community.
And I'm glad you did mention that, because I have listened to some interviews you gave, and I've listened to interviews from other opposition party. It seems as if it's more of a personality than policy. I've listened to one of your many videos. You said you communicate through letters. I mean, how can we get stuff done for the Guyanese people when you have someone cannot shake your hand? So certainly a lot needs to be done there. And I'm convinced and hopeful that, moving forward, we can actually achieve that goal, as you said, One Guyana, where all people can be able to enjoy the prosperity of their country. There are reports, Honorable Minister, there are reports coming out, and I would like for you to add your take on this. Among the Afro-Guyanese, they felt discriminated against. I know you mentioned it earlier. They felt discriminated against. They felt that their voices are not heard in the political process. And I would like for you, moving forward, how can you actually bridge that divide with the Afro community to ensure that their voices are heard, they have a stake in nation building, and we can achieve that One Guyana mindset?
First of all, the Constitution of Guyana and the Human Rights section of Guyana protects all people from discrimination of any kind. And that is built into our Constitution. You can go to a constitutional court on the motion that your human right is being violated, including discrimination, whether it's race, gender, etc. That's number one. Number two, there are rights commissions that have been set up, Ethnic Relations Commission, where people, and it was deliberately created in the 1999-2001 constitutional reform period to allow for domestic redress. So if people felt they were discriminated against on ethnicity, they could go to Ethnic Relations Commission. On women, they would go to Women and Gender Equality, Indigenous people to Indigenous people, and the rights of the child. So those constitutional bodies exist. The issue, there are many people who make claims of discrimination, political parties including politicians, but they don't come up with information. For example, during the distribution of the COVID household relief grant, the opposition made claims that people were not getting it. We said, you're working in your areas, give us the names of persons who did not receive for whatever reason, we will rectify it. Not one name came forward, not one name of persons. And in fact, we went back and double checked and found that all those who lived in those areas received. So there are mechanisms in Guyana, constitutional, legal, human rights, that allows for people to have redress. Just like in the United States, you feel discriminated, you go to the court. In the United States, you go to the Race Relations Commission, for example. We have a parallel to that in Guyana, the Ethnic Relations Commission. And I noticed one of your panelists is a member of the Ethnic Relations Commission. So these are mechanisms that we designed as a people in the constitutional reform process of 1999-2001 to build greater involvement and trust and development of institutions where people could have their say and their issues could be addressed. And if they were violated, their rights were violated, there were the mechanisms to deal with that. And so there are claims. I have been a politician for a long time, and I've heard a lot of things, and there are a lot of things on social media, particularly driven by those who are living in the States. There's certain opinion makers in the United States. One of them has me before the court on several cases, right here in Guyana, that that carries the race card, that wants the people to continue to be disunited, that wants to fuel the flame that people are discriminated against. And so the social media is an important component of this battle. And one can certainly talk about cybercrime and bringing stronger laws and bringing people to justice for doing this, and some of that happens. But at the same time, there are those in the social media who fan the flames and want to continue to have our people divided. But in fact, that's not what's happening. That is not what is happening. Our people want to have a united country. They want to see the country move forward. They've learned over the decades that when there's instability, when there's social strife and civil strife, the society grinds to a halt. The programs grind to a halt. They don't benefit. And so people now are saying, look, I've got my house lot. I'm paying my bills. I've got my loan. I don't have time for this nonsense. It is the PPPC that gave me my house lot, that allowed me to have a house lot, allowed me to own land.
Yeah.
And so the issues, there's a disconnect right now, Etwaro, to do with what popular view is, what people are coming to terms with after all these years, and what are those who really want to create differences. And the one comment, I saw someone made a comment on the participants that I wanted to just quickly answer. The oil revenue that we get is about 30% of our annual budget, for example. But our social programs we've developed are mainly those that we have developed to reduce disparities and inequalities based on geography, class, gender, and wherever that happens in terms of ethnicity. But we have managed the fiscal resources of our country prudently and well, and that is recognized by the IMF. Article 4 have praised us for what we have been doing. So IMF, who was tough on us in the 90s and 2000, now think of us as a good example of how to deliver people-centered programs that will reduce poverty as well as provide for pro-growth. The oil issue, the view that is peddled by many that oil and everyone has to benefit. All these programs I've described are done with monies that Ghana generates, whether it is through sugar, bauxite, gold, diamonds, rice, or whether it's with the revenue from the oil, for example. The amount of social programs which costing billions and billions of dollars. The increase, for example, in the old age pension, billions of dollars. The fact that the University of Ghana now is free, as well as the tertiary or secondary, post-secondary institutions of CCPE, the Guyana School of Agriculture, for example, and others that are free, so that the opportunities for young people to be able to live their dreams, to be able to go to university, to go to post-secondary institutions has become a reality. And so where there are views, where there are issues, we have to deal with, look, poverty is reducing, but there are still enclaves of poverty in some geographic areas, in some communities that are a combination of social cultural problems as well as economic and so forth. So when you have 29% of the women in this Guyana are running families by themselves because of absentee fathers, how do you think those children will have all the opportunities as other children? And so I look to the religious leaders too to be part of this process of developing ethnic unity and stability. Because when you have, I know the majority of women who come to the churches are single mothers or single grandmothers, raising grandchildren at the age of 40 and 45. Tell me, how can we as a people, as a country, deal with these social, cultural, economic issues,
Yeah.
which not only in terms of the programs we have, but also being able to talk to men in our society to be responsible fathers,
100%.
responsible parents, and to be part. You know, the president started this Men on Mission, which has thousands of men in it who are dealing with as change agents to be greater, more involved in communities, in their families, and raising their children, as well as providing building houses for people who are just destitute. And that program has started 2 years ago by the president. And so there are issues that are social, cultural, economic that need a combination of forces to deal with that. And as I think you said earlier, it is not just government. Civil society, and in particular the Seventh-day Adventists, we have very good, strong relations in partnership with the Seventh-day Adventists in Guyana, as well as the rest of the Christian community and the Hindu and the Muslim communities, because we feel that the religious bodies can work as partners and allies with us to reduce poverty, to reduce some of the social ills, including crime within our society. And so the approach has to be what you call broad-based and in one which is inclusive. And we have been as a former Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport, years ago, I worked with the Pathfinders and 7-Day and was always highly impressed by the programs of the 7-Day. So we see allies in the national stakeholders, of which the religious community is a key component of those stakeholders, national stakeholders, of course, private sector, trade unions, women's organizations, etc., are part of that as well.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. You sure laid out a vision for the party. You sure laid out the vision for the country. Certainly, when you mentioned the word poverty, I understand that deeply. I understand that. I was born and raised in abject poverty. I understand that. It affects me. And certainly, we want to see our Guyanese brothers and sisters be lifted out of the abyss of poverty. When you mentioned the word 60%, the number 60%, that is something that we hope you can come back on another time when we can celebrate success that says, you know what, we have 0% of people in poverty, or poverty is non-existent. I'm just saying
60% was in 1992 with the IMF figures, but
right.
it's not that now, obviously.
Right, certainly.
But as you said, but I think more and more when we look at all the programs we're doing and access to programs, and people are not being turned away from accessing programs and social programs we've brought in to bring relief to people. One of the more and more we recognize that some issues are social, cultural, economic, that need longer term interventions, not just in terms of, and it involves many stakeholders to be involved. So even with the programs to do with children going to school, we have reached universal primary school enrollment in Guyana, and we're heading towards universal secondary enrollment by next year. So these are important benchmarks of showing that even if a child is poor, they can go to school, they get school feeding, they get their voucher, they're able now, the president's talking about a transportation grant to help them get to school. So the cost for the family of paying for minibus or taxis to get to school will be reduced. And these are all with the intention of making sure that no child, nobody, no one is left behind. And that is our philosophy. No one is left behind.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I will turn over. I know we are running out of time. We have probably another question from my co-host, Mr. Robbie Rajugadu. Can you hear me, Robbie?
I can hear you. I
Okay.
apologize. You can't see me. Minister Shishira, I've been having some technical difficulties. Actually, I was all dressed up for you, but you can't see me.
I'm sorry, I can't see you, Ben.
Yes, but I do have a question, following up on what you were saying, and I was able to hear pretty much all that you said. This has to do with, if not reality, a perception that's in Guyana. And I want to talk about ethnic favoritism. That remains a sensitive issue. And again, we're dealing with both reality and with perception here. One of the criticisms which has surfaced from time to time is ethnic favoritism. Now, I understand this is a difficult subject because politics in Guyana is so intertwined with race. Now, my question is, can you comment on whether or not there's merit-based recruitment? And if so, how is this done?
Is this what? Recruitment?
Merit-based recruitment? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I'm hearing you, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
No, I mean, look, let's go back to some basics. One is that this is a country of minorities. Not one of the ethnic groups in Guyana has 50% of the population. So we're a country of minorities, number one. We're all minorities in Guyana, whether we're Indo-Guyanese, Afro-Guyanese, mixed, Amerindian, Chinese, Portuguese, whatever. And so the demographics show that the Indo-Guyanese are the larger of the minorities. Afro-Guyanese are the second largest of the ethnic groups. And of course, the Amerindian ethnic group is the most rapid growing group of all. So what was 5% in 1992, they're now 11% of the population in Guyana now. They're the fastest growing ethnic group in Guyana, basically because of improved healthcare, education, clean water, etc. The issue of ethnic favoritism, I've never heard that term. I'm sorry, I'm in Guyana, but I have not heard that term. I may have heard it in social media put a much more crude way. You put it in a more sophisticated manner, I think. But if you are looking at accessing services, you have 10 regions which reflect different demographics ethnically. Region 10, majority Afro-Guyanese. Region 6, Berbice, majority Indo-Guyanese. Region 9, majority Amerindian. And if you're doing a program of training, for example, then those people applying for that will reflect that ethnic demographics. If you are looking for persons in the police force, for example, you're trying to encourage other ethnic groups to join it, because that has been an issue raised since the 1960s by the International Court of Justice, that the Guyana police force needed to be more ethnically diverse. And so there has been some diversity and improvement in that. But the issue of going out and saying, well, only Indo-Guyanese and so on, that's ridiculous. That's not happening. But if you are doing a housing applications based on region, and you'll see the applications will reflect the demographics, ethnic demographics of that region. You can't get away from that. If you're doing old age pensions, it'll reflect, again, the ethnic demographics based on the regions, because different regions have different ethnic demographics. Region 4 is probably the most diverse in terms of, but again, it reflects a majority Afro-Guyanese over Indo-Guyanese.
I think
The issue of
Minister, not cutting
so,
you.
I mean, I don't see how ethnic favoritism, because you'd have to be able to say that the government has a program in which we are favoring people of this ethnicity over that ethnicity when they apply for access to services or land or whatever it is. And there's been no comment on that. There's been no statement on that or declaration that that is happening. But there are what is called affirmative action, which you in the United States will be familiar with, and that is that in the police force, in the army, that there has been over the years, over 20 odd years, efforts to bring more people of other ethnicities to join the army and the police. Not with great radical success, but that the army and the police have an increase of diversity more than, say, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago. The same thing with the police force, but the numbers are small. And so there is affirmative action in terms of trying to encourage, not to discriminate, but to encourage people of different ethnic groups to join. In the Discipline Forces Commission report, which was tabled in the House in 2010, after going through an inquiry in which Mr. Granger, the Joe Singh as the Major General, were part of that process, was that they advocated affirmative action to bring other ethnic groups into the army and the discipline forces. Secondly, they recognized that there were cultural and religious issues that kept other ethnicities away. So the very domination of some of these by Christian religion was to recognize that Ghana is a multi-religious society of Hinduism, Islam, Rastafarianism, Baha'ism, etc., and that those institutions had to allow for and recognize the diversity of religion of those entering, including diet, and so issues of, there were complaints of Muslims going into the army and police because pork, and in terms of Hindus, vegetarian, etc., etc. So that whole Commission of Inquiry report on the Discipline Forces 2010, which was tabled and passed in the House, and in which those recommendations have been part of the implementation over the years by the army and the police, in particular, prison and fire, recognize that the level of ethnic diversity would require some affirmative action in terms of going out and encouraging. And so what they do now is they go to all the regions, they go out to different communities, they encourage people to join. And so that has had some impact, but a very small impact in terms of the ethnic diversity of the discipline services. But it was, since the 1961, an issue that was raised. And so I make a distinction between ethnic favoritism and ethnic, what do you call, affirmative action, where required in areas where one needs to reflect. In GCOM, for example, it has been dominated by one ethnic group, and that has led to people not trusting the electoral process, particularly in the 2019-2020 period. All the assessments of GCOM by the observer missions, by the different UN bodies and so on, is that the GCOM should reflect more accurately and be more representative of the ethnic diversity of Guyana. That's a work in progress. That is what will have to be a work in progress with Guyana Elections Commission, which is a constitutional body. We don't have a say over that body. And so I think one has to be careful when one says ethnic favoritism, where is it taking place? In jobs, in the public service? I don't know.
I think it's
haven't
taken
seen
place
that.
according to what I'm hearing from people I speak with.
I'm
In
sorry?
the areas where contracts are awarded, contracts from the
No, no.
government where those contracts are awarded, and it seems
No,
to be
look,
that there's
no, let me
perception there
explain.
that there's some favoritism.
No. No.
And if there
The
isn't,
Procurement Act
how do
of
they
the
see?
Procurement
I'm
Act
sorry.
of Guyana. No, let me explain. The Procurement Act of Guyana is one of the most robust procurement acts in the Caribbean. Number one. Number two is that we go to public tender, and that this goes through a process with the National Tender Board. It is oversighted by the Public Procurement Commission, which is a constitutional body, and where the contracts under 16 million are awarded at the regional level and or at the ministries level by the NPTAB, and over 16 million go to cabinet for what's called no objection, which is according to the law. And so cabinet cannot change an award. The National Procurement Tender Administration, with evaluators who are chosen, there's a roster of evaluators who are selected for each contract. There are thousands of contracts that are awarded. And so there is no process. The law is a law. If you have to have NIS compliance, if you have to have income tax compliance, if you have to have to say that you have no litigation outstanding, have you completed your projects? Have you completed them on time? These are all the issues that contractors have to answer. These rules are lessened or at the community level where the contracts are given out for like cleaning the parapet, cleaning the drains, etc., where these are small contractors, many times headed by women, that are given those contracts. In fact, there's a very interesting development in Guyana where at the small contractors level, about 30 to 40% now are headed by women. A number of them are single mothers who are managing these small projects of parapet cleaning, drain cleaning, etc. So there's always in any kind of contract someone who feels that they were wronged, and therefore there's a process for that. If a contractor feels that there's been discrimination, that he didn't get the contract and he should have got it, the law allows for a bid review committee that will go through it and will determine whether he was right or wrong. In the meantime, the contract is paused. It cannot go forward until the process is ended. And therefore, contractors can use that mechanism. Some do, and they win, some don't. In addition to that, there are contracts that are funded by the IDB and World Bank. They have their own criteria, and any award has to be approved by the IDB and World Bank of the big projects.
Thank
And
you.
so I think one has to understand the law. The Procurement Act, in fact, has been adopted by a number of the Caribbean countries who never had such a law to manage their procurement processes and to have transparency and accountability. And the Public Procurement Commission is one that oversights, and a contractor can complain to that body if they feel they're wronged as well.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for that. Thank you, Mr. Robbie. While I would love to go on, we are running out of time. I would love the Honorable Minister to answer a few questions from the chat, but we are literally out of time. Again, on behalf of the Seventh-day Adventist academic professionals, we want to thank the Honorable Minister for finding the time to be with us. I know she can go on, and I know the Honorable Minister, she has steep in policy and politics, so we would have to cut it there. Also, thank you again to, it would be remiss not to mention in a few days we have emancipation. So I want to take this opportunity to wish all my Afro-Guyanese brothers and sisters a happy emancipation celebration. And on behalf of all of us, the executive of SAP, all of us here, Pastor Moriah, Pastor Lowe, and all of us, my co-host, Mr. Raju Gadu, had some technical issue. Thank you again, and I hope we can come back and have a more robust and a discussion about the progress and the prosperity of our Guyanese brothers and sisters. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Well, thank you very much, and I hope that I have clarified a number of things. I hope that the dynamics of Guyana right now, it is extraordinary country. I mean, I have been through from the 1970s to now, and I've never seen my country like this. I, like many Guyanese, I think almost all Guyanese, have a sense of pride and hope that we never had before. And so there will be missteps. There are things that we may not get right all the time, but that our country is on a pathway that is just mind-boggling in terms of the advancements and the transformation. And this is infectious. It's infectious, sir. It's a good infection, not a COVID infection, a good infection for our people, because we can now be proud of who we are. We've been the poor relations in the Caribbean for so long with the Trinidad, Guyana bench and the Barbados Guyana bench. We no longer have that anymore. And the younger generation, luckily, are inheriting a better place. And if we have helped to make it better yet for all of us. But I want to thank, in particular, SAP and to underline that we value deeply as a government our relations with your organization and with the Seventh-day religion as well, the church. We have very, very good relations, very productive and positive. And so, and we want to have that with all the Christian bodies, all the Hindu and the Muslim bodies. And we work on that partnership to build Guyana and make One Guyana a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
All right, I just would like to thank the Honorable Minister and our moderators. We're getting ready to segue into the second session, but I also want to apologize to the Minister and some of our listening audience here. We have had some technical difficulties with our password, so some of our prospective participants and viewers have not been able to log into the Zoom, but we have been streaming on YouTube. So we have folks who are watching on YouTube, and your message was was conveyed via YouTube, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much, and we'll ask Mr. Etwaru and Mr. Rajugado to lead us into the second segment. And we just want to say thanks again to our Honorable Minister of
Thank you very
Governance
much.
and Parliamentary Affairs.
Thank you very much. And if there's anything I need that you need from me again, or you need any clarification based on discussions, I am available. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so we're just going to take a few minutes break, and then we're just going to jump straight into the second segment, which involves a panel discussion. And just to remind our listening audience, the second segment will focus on the panel discussion, the role of religion or religious leaders and political leaders in promoting ethnic unity, healing, egalitarianism, and reconciliation in Guyana. As Mr. Etwaru indicated previously, we have reached out to a number of individuals, primarily our presidential candidates. We did reach out to Mr. Mohammed Azardine, as well as Mr. Nigel Hughes, and they were not able, we didn't get any response back from them. Tomorrow night, we are going to hear from the Honorable Opposition Leader and Presidential Candidate for APNU, the APNU Coalition, the Honorable Mr. Aubrey Norton. We will have our interview with him at 8 p.m. and at 7 p.m. we are going to have an interview with the Honorable Presidential Candidate for Forward Guyana Movement, Mrs. Amanza Walton Desir. We want to apologize to Ms. Simona Broom. She's one of the presidential candidates. We weren't able to contact her, but we were able to contact the other presidential candidates. For this segment that we're moving into, we did contact a number of religious organizations and leaders. We did contact the Roman Catholic Church, Bishop Francis, and the Catholic media, and we didn't get any response from them. We also contact the Anglican Church, one of the representatives for the Anglican Church, and they have a special harvest feast this evening, so they weren't able to field a representative. We also contact First Assemblies of God in Georgetown, and we weren't able to get anyone to represent that denomination, as well as Grace Temple in New Amsterdam, Guyana. These are multi-ethnic congregations. We also contact the GTU, that's Guyana Congregational Union, pardon me, the chairman, Reverend Gills, and she was not able to make it tonight. Over to Mr. Etwaru and Mr. Rajugado.
Thank you, Pastor Moriah. Robbie, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. I know you
Okay.
can't see me, but I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yes, good. And welcome again to our second segment of this program here, where we have some panelists, as Pastor Clinton mentioned, from various religious bodies and organizations within the country. We have, I'm not sure, I see Pandit Devdat Prasad there. We have Miss Laura George. We have Mr. Dion Dick, Mr. Nazim Hussain. I'm not sure if they're on, if they're logged in there. Would you be able to tell if they're on there, Robbie?
Yes, a few are. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight them.
Okay. So we can formally introduce them. And
Does anyone have like questions or comments after listening to what the minister said?
Yes. Is everyone hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. The minister, as I think she has put forward some good points. However, one of the challenge that as an educated person who near completed DBA, one of the greatest challenge affecting Guyana in terms of poverty is that they have not done a feasibility study to counteract the World Bank study in terms of 50%, I think, of Guyanese living in poverty. And it's one of the greatest challenges that affect the Caribbean region. They are not doing quantitative research on the ground to get findings, and based on the findings, develop proper economic policies. So the point is that if they have done a feasibility study on the ground, challenging the key areas that make up the 10 administrative region, and based on the findings, this is where they could come up with proper policy in terms of reducing poverty. For example, instead of you using a cash grant, which is not equitable because people, when they collect these money, they could spend it out, they could do all kind of things. You roll out a monthly grocery card that I have in Trinidad, I have in America, England, those places I moved, whereby a top-up grocery card with these people, these single parents or mothers with 4 or 5 children could able to use these cards based on the income they're getting, because you have to do an analysis based on the income, the minimum wage. So let's say, for example, $10,000 grocery card, whereby every month they could use this card to go in the grocery, match with their income. That would be equitable in order to help them in terms of the budget. So that would now last until the child meet adult, let's say 18 years. So at the end, you could able to monitor these people that fall in the poverty line in terms of how the grocery or the spending has been going every month, as opposed to one-off cash grant. And so I don't think that's equitable as an academic or someone within that field.
Your concern here is not so much racial inequity as it is the administration of a program, in your view, being done poorly. Am I right?
That's a great
I'm just
question.
answering based on what the minister has said in terms of poverty, but I haven't really looked yet at the racial inequity as yet, but based on what she said.
Okay, gotcha.
Thank you. So, Robbie, we will move forward with our panelists here. I want us to introduce the panelists here. We have in our presence Mr. Nazim Hussain. We have Mr. Devdutt Prasad. I think we also have Mr. Dion Dick there. And I'm not seeing Miss Laura George. Is she in?
No, unless she's in by another name, I don't see her.
Miss
Okay.
Laura George, are you in the Zoom? Can you hear us, Miss Laura George?
She's the only panelist I have not seen.
Yeah.
Signing in, and I want to apologize again. We're having some challenges with the password. I think that has affected our attendance on the Zoom tonight. But Mr. Itwari, you can go ahead and introduce the panelists.
Sure.
Laura's having some challenges signing in.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Again, welcome again to this portion of our forum here. We have Ms. Devdutt Prasad. Ms. Devdutt Prasad is a Pandit in Guyana. He has been appointed the youngest person, my understanding is, to the ERC. For those who don't know, the ERC is a constitutional body, Ethnic Relation Commission. He was the youngest person that has ever been appointed to that body. And he is a former ERC member, my understanding. He is now a Pandit, and he does other things regarding his role as an activist. And we are glad to have Pandit Prasad here. He is involved in a lot of civic engagement, and we are glad that he can share his perspective on this matter of great importance to us right now. Mr. Devdutt is a Maclean Global Leader and a CAICED Fellow and a PhD candidate with a lifelong commitment to peace, inclusion, and community upliftment. Pandit Prasad, welcome to our program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Atwaro.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have Mr. Nazim Hussain. Mr. Nazim Hussain is a bank manager with the Ministry of Health National AIDS Program Secretariat. He's also a TV presenter at the National Communications Network and a presenter for the weekly program by the Central Islamic Organization of Guyana and a vice chair of the Interreligious Organization of Guyana, representing the CIO of Guyana, Central Islamic Organization of Guyana. And we also have in our presence Mr. Ras Kafra. Can you hear me, Mr. Kafra? Welcome, Mr. Nazim. Can you hear me?
Good evening. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Good evening.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Nazim. Mr. Kafra, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Good evening to you
Yeah,
and
good
to
evening.
everyone.
Welcome to the program. Mr. Kafra is a dedicated and result-driven professional with over 20 years of experience in the human rights advocacy group, known for strategic mindset and a collaborative approach. He has successfully led initiatives in organizational development and communication empowerment. He holds a bachelor's degree in social work from the University of Guyana and has earned a reputation for integrity, analytical thinking, and a strong commitment to excellence. Currently, Mr. Kafra serves as the General Secretary of the Guyana Rastafari Council, and we want to say he brings a unique perspective to this discourse about religion and in our group here. Outside of his work, he is involved in sports, tennis, and the manager at the Titans Table Tennis. Welcome, Mr. Kafra, for being on our program.
Yeah, good evening. Tonight I'm here in the capacity as Commissioner of the Ethnic Relations Commission, representing the African Guyanese community.
Right, that slipped me there, and I apologize for that. He is a sitting member of the ERC. For our viewers in Guyana and around the world, the ERC is a constitutional body that deals with racial inequities, etc. And Mr. Kafra is a sitting member, so he has a little bit inside understanding of how that organization works and functions to help with racial inequities throughout the length and breadth of the Guyana. So certainly we have three of our panelists here. I did not see Miss Laura George. Miss Laura George, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, she's just joined us.
Okay. Okay.
She has just joined us.
Okay, Miss George, how are you? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great, great. Thank you for being on our program. Ms. George is, I think we are running out of time. Ms. George is one of the civil, I think she's a civil rights activist for her community in the hinterland region. And she's also newly appointed prime ministerial candidate for the AFC. Am I correct, Ms. George?
On the prime ministerial candidate, yes. As a rights advocate, I have been a rights advocate not only in my community, but for indigenous peoples and those who are unable to speak up for themselves.
Good, great. Thank you for having us. Thank you for being here with us. Welcome to our panelists, and we will get right to our question. Robbie, you want to start with your question, Robbie? I will. Well, anyway, Robbie probably. Okay, Miss George, seeing that you're here, thank you again. Thank you to all our panelists, our viewing audience.
Can you guys hear me now?
In the diaspora, I can see you now too, Robbie. Yep.
Oh, good. So it's working now for me.
Yep, good. So I will pose the first question to Miss Laura George. What are you and your respective religion, human rights, and social political organization doing to promote ethnic unity, healing, reconciliation, and egalitarianism in Guyana? That is the question for you, Miss Laura George.
All right, let me start with my experience and work that I've been doing in community, in my village, and what I've been promoting over the years. Taking note of the fact that as a child, I found religion, or the denominations rather, the churches in my village, having different positions or different perspectives and different ideologies, of course. Where I was in a Wesleyan church as a child, that's how I know my childhood. But they were the Adventist church that were trying to get me converted and baptized into the Adventist church. But then there was also this what we call Alleluia Church. It's an indigenous, it's an Akawaya Makushi largely, if you have heard of those terms. It was started by those founders, or it was founded by those indigenous peoples. So I've lived in a community, small community, but making or creating different spaces where, as residents, we question which is the better church, or, you know. So my first experience with denominations and religions have been one where I wasn't happy with what it was doing in our village. In the country, in indigenous communities, I can tell you that the churches, the denominations have been used to promote unity, but also to cause division. I can tell you this because I've heard this from the leaders in the meetings where you have, for example, Tushaw or person becoming a Tushaw, you call them, their elected leaders call Tushaws. So I've learned from communities where an individual becomes a Tushaw because the church, the larger congregation members were able to influence who becomes the Tushaw, the elected leader. And I can also tell you that it has caused division for the sole reason that, and these are lived experiences and reports I'm relating here, where a person elected as a Tushaw then does something contrary in terms of poor governance, as in misappropriation of funds and a whole host of, a whole host of issues that cause moral, the breakdown of morale, but also it causes residents and communities to question the church.
Ms. George, from your perspective as an indigenous activist, how you think can the political leaders and the religious leaders, come together to promote like racial, ethnic unity, healing, and reconciliation? From your unique perspective as an indigenous rights advocate.
Oh, that's it. Your question is finished. All right. I'm really happy you're asking me that question because for a very long time, those have always been my questions as well as to how can we do this? As I said, individual citizens have the right to be aligned to a political party of their choice. Likewise, they have a right to belong to and be active members of a church. And these are all constitutional rights provided in the Constitution of our country. However, there has also been a mixture of overlaps where political or partisan politics has also influenced whether persons become or support a religion or a denomination. And we really should be all policymakers, leaders in the churches should be aspiring to making sure that we are unified, because in unity we can be empowered to make sure that there are checks and balances. I believe the churches and religion also can play a role in ensuring that a political organization and structures are ones that promote safety, that promote respect, that promote empowerment. And because out of all of those, then we can make healthy choices. Let me give you an example of why, of how churches can play this role in, for example, in the social sphere. We have alcohol being so glamorized, and it is so promoted, but you don't hear where the churches or the religion might be able to say, you know what? While you're glamorizing or promoting the glamour of alcohol consumption, it is not healthy. It's contributing to the destruction of our young people. It's just contributing to the destruction of families. So how do we have a reconciliation? And again, it comes back to, we have structures in Guyana, constitutional bodies, because I'm seeing my brother, which I can never remember his name, like I don't know it, but my brother Kafra there. We have commissions that I believe can also be used to coordinate and monitor how this is done. But perhaps perhaps it is time for a truth and reconciliation body, a commission to be established. We don't have that. There is a Human Rights Commission, which has never been established. We have the other commissions, constitutional bodies, Indigenous Peoples Commission, gender, and the the racial, I'm sorry, it's escaping me now. But we have different commissions, but I believe there is no coordination to ensure how these different bodies can work to make sure that all citizens and groups of people are able to find safe spaces to create plans, implement programs on a national level, but really also being supported by policymakers. And I find that there are gaps that take place there.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Certainly, there are a lot that has to be done. And I'm glad that you're at the forefront of ensuring that some of the needs of your people and the broader community are heard and addressed. I'm going to ask.
If I may, Richard.
Yes, go ahead, Robbie.
I think there's a big disparity between what's ideological and what's practical. Each party, each group, each church, generally, they preach a principle of inclusion. So there's no shortage of ideas. Where the issue comes up has to do with the execution. And there have been a lot of failings when it comes to Guyana. We all see that. I think what we're trying to get at is what are the practical applications that can work to help us with ethnic relations in Guyana.
Thank you, Robbie. And this is the same question I'm going to pose to the Pandit Prasad in regards to what are you and your respective religious body can do to promote ethnic unity, healing, and reconciliation in our beautiful Guyana. Pandit Prasad, can you hear me?
Thank you very much. Yes, I can definitely hear you. Okay, so namaste and good evening to everyone. And of course, I want to thank you very much for this opportunity, for this. I think it's a great space for us to have these forms of discussion, especially at a time that is ever needed and running up to our elections. Certainly, I want to begin answering a question from perspective that we believe as Hindu that this concept of unity begins solely from what we call Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one. And so if we really truly want to address what you've asked for, we have to start recognizing first and foremost that we are really and truly, it's not an issue of against them, but it's really a matter of us because we're all one family. And so by recognizing that fundamental, I think we can start approaching this from a perspective of respect. And I think this is where the work that we do, and I can cite from the multiple caps that I wear. I do work with the Golden Home Dharmic Youth Organization, Guyana Center for Civic Engagement, and of course, I am serving as a chair of the Eastbury branch of the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha and as a pandit of the Reliance Settlement Mandir. I think first and foremost, in all our endeavors, the undertone should always be some form of respect to the other, because the other is really us. And I think this is what distinguishes a Hindu perspective when we deal with this whole issue about religious tolerance, human rights, and politics. In terms of initiative itself, I know last year, we had the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha, and along with many other organizations, we started what is called the Guyana Interfaith Harmony Project. And that was simply as a fellow from the KAICEID program, which is basically facilitating using dialogue as a healing tool to addressing challenges. And so we have really started using that model. And what that entails is, of course, meeting out to different religious body, engaging in addressing issues of perception biases and how we can promote our religion by being respectful to the others. And those goals, some of them were accomplished by workshop, but of course, site visit, which we thought was a very powerful tool for us to understand each other. we also, I think one of the things is that we like to look at things from a perspective of if we do our part of promoting intra-unity within our denomination, that can also, the messaging can has a form of ripple effect to how we deal with other religions. So I think one of the things that our training first starts with is ensuring we have unity amongst ourselves, because we believe in when we have unity among ourselves, we can project that very unity out to the outer world. In addition to that, also there's a support spaces where there are efforts for inter-religious collaboration. In Guyana, there has been some form of it, but I think there are obviously spaces where this kind of multi-faith coalition from a very non-partisan perspective can really and truly bring more. But as it is there, I think we have still been engaging with other religious bodies. I know there are like recently we've got a whole notion of Hindu phobia, a sentiment which is not expressed before, but it's now becoming. And we were very moved to see not only that we got support from Hindus itself, but we saw persons of other religious background also stand up, and I feel that gives a sense of encouragement that we're doing something that is right.
Thank you, Pandit Prasad. Ravi, do you have any follow-up question for the Pandit?
Not follow-up question per se, but just point of clarification. When you say you reached out to other religious organizations, are you also saying that you reached out to other ethnic groups apart from yours?
Of course, I mean, yes, definitely.
And what has the response been? How has it
well, I can tell you from the last project that we have run off, we had no difficulty. I think there is a sense of enthusiasm because people want to have dialogue, people want to have conversation, and I think it's given the nature of the kind of country that we live in, a multi-ethnic one, and I think we just have to leverage this kind of opportunity where we don't see each other as against, but I think as a country like ours, I think the tone is always there. The opportunity is just how we harness and leverage on what is there already. I'd never had any difficulties relating to persons of other religious or ethnic groups.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, Pandit Prasad. Our previous panelist, Ms. George, did mention something very interesting. In addition to the ERC, the Ethnic Relations Commission, there needs to be a more truth and reconciliation body that looks at all these matters of racial inequity, etc. Certainly, that is probably an avenue where you guys can explore. We do have a sitting member of the ERC, and so the same question I would ask him, when it comes to racial and ethnic healing and reconciliation, where does he see it? And I would like his perspective to share with our audience. Go ahead, Stafford. Your turn.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Etwaru.
You're welcome, sir.
I would begin by saying that the ERC was created to be a primary institution for fostering ethnic harmony, healing, and reconciliation.
I'm getting a little feedback there, Mr.
And that is so because Guyana started as a society. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I can hear you. We can hear you.
Hello, you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Was a little static there earlier. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm gonna have to excuse me because yes, I'm saying that the ERC was created. The fact that Guyana started as a society of conflict based on ethnicity. where Europeans brought Africans to work as a labor force, dehumanized them, oppressed them, discriminated against them, and so on. Others subsequently came into that environment, into that system, and we've never really gone through a process of transforming that system, right? And so, given all of the ignorance that we have of each other, all of the suspicions and negative perceptions that these different groups that make up the Guyanese society have of each other, these things lend themselves, as our history show, to periods of conflict, intense conflict, more so during and after our elections, right? So it is within that historical context of ethnic conflict that the ERC was aborted and given 24 functions that can be found in Article 212D of the Constitution. Now, those functions, many of them overlap and repeat and so on, but coming out of those functions, they can be categorized into two different categories. One of them, most importantly, is into a category that we call the ends or the strategic goals of the Ethnic Relations Commission, right? And I'll state them. The first one is to prevent and eliminate discrimination, right? Two is to promote equality of opportunity. And the third one is to foster ethnic and racial good relations, right? So those are the three strategic goals of the Ethnic Relations Commission. Most of the other functions of the ERC speaks to how we go about achieving those goals in terms of training and educating, consulting, monitoring, carrying out studies and investigations, reporting to the National Assembly, making recommendations, and so on and so forth, right? I will say that based on the constitutional provisions of the ERC, we've not fully utilized this mechanism as yet, given the fact that it is heavily it operates in a environment of heavy political conflict, right? Heavy political competition to control it. And for most of its years, it has been without commissioners, right? The Ethnic Relations Commission, this is the third life. And I will say that given all the challenges, given all the responsibilities that we have, we are still in a stage of ggrowing into our true potential to bring healing and harmony and reconciliation to Guyana, right? So I will leave that there for now. I think you might have a follow-up.
Yeah, thank you very much
Yeah.
for that.
Mr.
Just a
Guaro?
follow-up. Yes, go ahead,
Mr. Rajagado and erudite panelists, I just want to join in saying good evening. We were expecting representation from the leadership of the Guyana Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. We did contact the president and some of the directors, but they indicated that they were unavailable due to other commitments. So they are not going to be sharing tonight, but I will be sharing from the Society of Adventist academic perspective on Adventism in terms of from a professional perspective. In my correspondence with the president of the Guyana Conference, he did indicate that the Seventh-day Adventist Church is not racially divided in Guyana. The Seventh-day Adventist Church in Guyana is not racially divided in his opinion. The Seventh-day Adventist Church constitute different races, but the predominant ethnicity are Afro-Guyanese the smallest group are Indo-Guyanese, and or indigenous Guyanese are in the middle. I think the Seventh-day Adventist Church hopes to this. In fact, the aim in terms of promoting ethnic unity, healing, and reconciliation, I think the first thing is by displaying it among each other. And the hope is that when folks look at the Adventist community, how they treat each other despite of their ethnicity, that folks from other faiths as well as Guyanese of other ethnicities can see, well, there are certain examples where they treat each other equally. So I think that's one the aim in terms of from my perspective, that the leadership is hoping that the church can contribute in terms of crossing line. One of the initiatives they've had is focus on some of the minority groups in our church, primarily or Indo-Guyanese. They have specific ministry called East Asian Ministry in order, and I heard Pandit Deodat indicate in terms of his efforts to reach out to other group. There is a department that is specializes or a department that is part of outreach that reaches out. The aim is to reach out to our Muslim Hindu brethren in terms of establishing, in terms of outreach relationship, give them, more understanding in terms of what Adventism is. There have been some stereotypes because, as Mr. Dick indicated, that with colonialism come a colonial approach, and Adventism has struggled with that, but it has been a work in progress to date. Adventism has grown in terms of the approach, and as chaplain as the Pandit Deodat indicated, that there were times when the Seventh-day Adventist Church, when they had outreach in the Hindu and Muslim communities, the approach was very condescending and colonial. I think over time there's been growth in that area, and I think that's one of the reasons why the East Asian Outreach Department has been established to give Seventh-day Adventist members of different ethnicity a great understanding of how to understand the different cultures, in fact, the ethnic groups, and how we can reach out to them.
Thank you, Pastor Mariah, for those views and unique perspective. If I hear Mr. Kaffir correctly, when he mentioned that he is a sitting member of the Ethnic Relations Commission, and it's looks like, and if I can take away from what he said, that it's probably influenced by politics, it's tainted, it's tarnished, and hence it lacks that kind of independence that it needs. And so I hope that moving forward, the ERC can stand as a body that has the respect, that has the credibility, and that has the capacity to function as the Constitution warrants it. Am I correct, Mr. Kaffir?
To an extent, most of the work that the ERC has done, I think we've not addressed the real issues over the entire history lives of the Commission. We take as a matter of the ERC promoting harmony and good relations. Okay. But the promoting harmony and good relations is just one aspect of our strategic goal, right? Okay. There's the other part of promoting equality of opportunity and preventing and eliminating discrimination. right? We've not gone after those goals. So, for example, most of the work that we're doing right now has to do with educating young people. We have a very robust public education program that takes us to many of the schools throughout the regions. We also have a diversity, equity, and inclusion training program that we engage the workforce, right? Both private and public sector. So it's heavy on training and educating individuals and so on, right? But we've not challenged the systemic issues, right? So, for example, the ERC has never, well, it was done in Bishop Edgill's time, right? Where there were studies that were done to investigate things such as house lot distributions, employment practices, and so on. But the problem with that was that because of the fact that the ERC lacked what is called subpoena power, we could not get the information that we needed to reflect the true reality of what's going on in Guyanese society, right? Even though that is one of our mandates, right? We cannot make sound policies. We cannot advise Parliament and the government on sound policies that they can implement to bring about this kind of ethnic harmony and unity and so on without carrying out studies and investigations. And we've not done those things since 2023, when we just came in. Those were some of the things that I tabled for. I told the ERC that every life of the ERC should carry out those studies, because the policies that have to address the issues of ethnic inequality and contention and so, they have to be data driven, right? And I think that was one of the issues somebody referenced earlier, that Guyana is not a society that is making policies based on study. You know, we're not even doing proper monitoring evaluation to know how effective these programs that we're implementing, how effective they are. So the ERC has been failing to tackle the core issues, right? The systemic issues that can really bring healing and so on to
Thank you for that, Mr. Kaffer. We have in our forum here Mr. Nazim Hussein. He shares and brings a unique perspective, being a member of the Central Islamic Organization in Guyana. Mr. Nazim, the same question we would like to ask you, sir.
Good evening, salam and namaskar, greetings to everyone. From the Central Islamic Organization perspective, the Central Islamic Organization was formed in 1979 primarily to look after the welfare of Muslims across the country in Guyana. And over the years, it had a slight diversification, where also some of its programs also reached out to non-Muslims. Specifically, one which is currently ongoing, almost 500 orphans and vulnerable children. And I can remember early on, someone spoke about cash grant and having a monthly thing for groceries. So what this orphans and vulnerable children, and I'm just diverting a bit, does, it provides a stipend of 10,000 Ghana dollars per month for each orphan or vulnerable child up to the age or whenever they would have finished high school. So that person can take note of that. But back to the Central Islamic Organization of Guyana. Most of our discourse in terms of, and I should quote the Quran and the verse literally, the Quran specifically says, "O mankind, I have created you male and female," and that's the Lord speaking, Allah is speaking. "I have created you male and female amongst nations and tribes so that you may get to know each other. And the best amongst you are those who are God conscious." And so it is. We're not going to be all Muslims or all Christians or all Hindus in this world according to the Quran. But the thing is, we may different, so we may get to know each other. And that's what Muslims, in most part, try to do. The thing is, and of course, this is mostly tabled at the mosque level in terms of the sermons on a Friday. Imams are, from time to time, will give their lecture talking about not only religious or Islamic rituals and practices, but also how we live in a diversified country that warrants us to be conscious of those who we will interact with. The thing is, in Guyana, and it was Kafra who spoke about how it all started with us being a colony. And over the centuries or over the decades, religion and culture has morphed into each other. So show me a Pagwa celebrations in Guyana that doesn't have multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious congregation. While some religious may frown upon, non-Muslims will put a Christmas tree up in their home. One thing which we have not addressed, and even at all levels, we speak about race and we talk about the color of one's skins, an African, an Indian, a Chinese, and blah, blah, blah. We fail to realize that interracial marriages has been a hallmark of our country. Do you know how many, as we would call it, Douglas in this country? That tells you plain we don't really have, or we should not have, a racial problem in this country. The thing is, I married my wife. She used to be Christian, now she's Muslim, but her mother was a Seventh-day Adventist. And for 2 years, to her death, she stayed in my house. We couldn't put up a Christmas tree. We couldn't celebrate her birthday and so forth, but we respect that faith. And that is what we're trying to do as Muslims. We respect each other. And even looking at my role representing the CIOG at the Interreligious Organization of Guyana, or in February when we have the Interfaith Harmony Week, that's what we do, where you try to bring people together so that you can expose various religious bodies, religious teachings, so that people can appreciate and understand, so we would not have these types of division. Guyana, among other countries in the world, and I don't know how many of the panel members or the or listeners who are watching and listening, that the U.S. State Department monitors not only Guyana, but other countries in the world, but at least annually, the U.S. State Department has a religious freedom report. And CAFRA should really go back to the one that in 2023. And I don't know if Guyana government and I think the Rastafari community would have made proposition for, and this was in this U.S. State Department report of the how many, of course, marijuana is something which is very near and dear to the Rastafari community. And of course, they had an issue with that. That is included in the U.S. 2023 report as in terms of religion in Guyana. So far, those reports over the years have not really indicated that we have major issues with religion and our communities. We don't see that much. Pandit there that should know of a story that happened, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, when a certain restaurant served food in a bag that had holy scriptures, Hindu holy writings on it. And so that too had an issue. So we see these small pockets coming up, but then the education that is needed right across the board is working. And again, our culture, back to you would find Guyanese walking the roads of all ethnic groups, walking the roads and admire the Diwali celebrations. The largest gathering in this country, is the Diwali motorcade. And right across the East Coast from Georgetown to LBI, people of all descriptions, all faith, all ethnic background will line that route. And you think we have an ethnic / religious issue in this country? As before we start, someone talk about doing quantitative or qualitative research. Why not? look at that Diwali motorcade and tell me something else. In closing, I would just like to refer to our only female on the panel, Madam Laura, and I so love the point she made. We should really know what is ripping our communities apart, and she is absolutely correct. And religious leaders need to stop pussyfooting and deal with the alcoholic issue now. That is one of our major issues in all of our faith. I know that for a fact. A few years ago, she was not a minister then, but I had a good chat with Dr. Vindya Prasad, the head of the Ghanaian Dharmic Sabha, and she too wanted to do something about alcohol. And and that is something that is really impacting negatively in our communities, not only at a religious level, but even in all aspects in our youths. And so while SCAFRA will be talking about education in the school system, nobody does alcohol and those other issues in our school system. I thank you very much for listening. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Hussein.
Mr. Moderator,
Yeah.
I'm sorry for the interruption.
Yes.
We have a few asking that the panelists open their cameras. So if Mr. Nazim is able to, if he speaks again, we'd appreciate that.
I would appreciate if that request. No, I will not be able to do that at the moment where I am positioned. That will not be. I'm not able to do that at the moment. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. That's understandable. Thank you.
If that's going to be an issue, I will humbly take my leave. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Just for our viewers in Guyana and in the wider diaspora, we are having a password issue with Zoom, but we are streaming live on YouTube. So you can catch us there and view the program. I know we are running out of time. Robbie, do you have any a follow-up question for our panelists?
Not a question per se, but more of an observation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of what has been alluded to has to do with education, because like we all know, perception is reality. And if you perceive you're being discriminated against, then that's what it is, regardless of what the reality is. One of the things I want to touch on, and maybe I don't know if we have enough time for this. I'm hoping we do. A lot of times when we see crime in Guyana, it seems to be a default setting to go to racism if the crime is committed by someone outside of your race. Now, there can be an overlap, and that can be true. But a lot of times it isn't true, because crime can be committed by anybody. They may have their own motivation. There could be a lot of reasons for it. But if our default setting is to go back to racism, it's really hard to heal. So I think there needs to be some sort of education when it comes to these things. I mean, across the wider community. So we don't always go back and say, okay, it's all racist, it's all, ethnic division, when in effect it's really not.
Makes sense. Thank you, Robbie. And as all the presenters have mentioned, and you mentioned too, Mr. Kaffer mentioned, Mr. Nazim and Mr. George, that education is the key. We need an educated populace is less likely to fall prey to any political, religious, or other machinations. So an educated populace is important. An informed populace is important. So we are running out of time, but we're going to ask Pastor Mariah, do you have any follow-up question for our panelists before we close off? It's going after 9, and I don't want to have these panelists.
I just had a brief comment as you take time to field questions from the panelists. I think in my perspective, I think the religious leaders in Guyana, and I'm coming from a religious perspective, have contributed to some of our ethnic issues because they've not spoken with a clear voice. They have not been leaders when it comes to morality. Heard folks spoke about crime earlier. And I'm going to allude to some of the great people in that area when it comes to social justice issue and equal rights.
Having some technical difficulties.
And we all, for those who are familiar with Guyana, we know Guyana, the system is not perfect. Some people may say that it's a seedbed of corruption, but I would not say that right now. As what I would say is that it has its flaws at every level in society. And like Mahatma Gandhi spoke out in India, and Malcolm X, and that's Islam, as well as Muhammad Ali spoke about some of the injustices. I think our religious leaders at times kind of pander to the political powers that are in charge. And I think they have contributed to the current situation because they have not come together and spoken with a clear voice against, and this is something common as indicated by my fellow panelists, whether in Rastafarianism, whether in Hinduism and Islam, equal rights, equality, justice. These are common threads in all of these religions.
And if I may add to what you're saying there, Elder, I think what has happened, at least in my observation, is that religious bodies, political parties, groups, whatever you want to call them, they're pretty good at working within their circle, meaning they're trying to address the needs of that circle, they're trying to educate that circle, but there isn't much outreach, from that circle to other groups. And that's why the division still stands, in my opinion.
If
I can just add.
Go ahead, Mr. Go ahead, sir.
Yes. I want to say that the 3 lives of the ERC, in all 3 lives, the ERC has been headed by religious leaders. The first life was under Bishop Juan Ejil. The second life was under Reverend Smith. And now the third life is under Sheikh Muinul Haq of the CIOG. So I just wanted to add that with all the shortcomings and the failures and all the negative perceptions that the Guyanese society have of the ERC, religious leaders have been at the head of it.
Thank you, Mr. Kaffer, there for that inject your perspective there. Certainly the church, religious bodies need to take a more prominent role, if I can gather this from the panelists, in matters of national issue facing our Guyanese brothers and sisters. They need to take a more prominent role than to pander to political pressure and from the outside. So I think that's important that, they need to come out more and be on the forefront of advocating for issues that matter to all people. And so we can have a more perfect union. Pastor Moriah, I think it is time for us to move towards closing, but I'm going to ask, I'm going to circle back to our first panelist and ask her if she has her final thoughts. And then I'm going to ask each panelist for their final thoughts, and then we can close off from there.
Oh, sorry. My final thoughts will not end today, but what I'm really happy for is that we've had this conversation. I hope that we can continue, and you can also coordinate along with other churches to understand like what they think, what they feel. Like the previous speaker said, I think it was Pastor. It is true that I support, or I see that the churches, and I see a comment here, the churches and religion should not mix, or the state and the churches should not mix. it is true to the event that it doesn't interfere with the state's decision making. But the church needs to play its role very proactively to ensure that the state as well apply mechanisms, follow procedures and good governance to make sure that it is fair, it is transparent, free of corruption, and that the leaders can be held accountable. Because without that, you have a nation that's going to spiral and it's going to also affect and probably consume the church. When I say consume the church, you have your members can also be affected. And, we cannot afford to have our humanity situation like that.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Madam George. I'm going to move on to Pandit Prasad.
So
Just
I
in
just
interest of
probably
time,
want
we can be very brief here. That'll be good.
I just want to react to 2 points. And first of all, I think especially that religious leaders, obviously there is a space for them in the participation of this entire process, and there's no denial of that. But what I want to say, whether it's a political process or whether being a part of state agencies or sitting on boards, etc., I think that they are well in the right to do so. But I believe that when we talk of religious leaders taking up those positions, one has to hold them, in my opinion, at a higher standard, because not only are they expected to execute their duty of that office, but they also must be able to understand the kind of a background, because at the end of it, all we understand, the institution of religion itself is there to promote good values, ethics, and so forth. And it's that kind of a leadership we want to see reflected when they take up positions. And so I'm talking about whether during commissions, they speak to the truth always, whether it's inconvenient, calling out ethnic manipulation, refusing political patronage if it compromises unity. And to that end, I believe, having listened to all that was said here this evening, of course, there are institutions established, but I believe still, and I think I mentioned this before, is that I think there are still forums where there can be more collaborative efforts by by interreligious community, like perhaps establishing like national interfaith, interethnic peace building academy. Of course, again, I'm going to stress on this. All of these should be stuck with non-partisan people, because I think for too long, all of these institutions have all, some or the other, have not been able to insulate politics. And so if we can be able to move in that, I think it will help a lot, especially when we want to move towards the direction of the truth and reconciliation. And those are the thoughts I want to share this evening.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Pandit Prasad. I appreciate your perspective. Go ahead, Robbie.
I think that's about it for me. I know we're out of time, unless there's anything anybody else wants to say real quickly.
Yeah,
I think we can wrap it all up.
Go ahead,
Thank you
for your final
participation.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I heard speakers when they talked about the importance of education, helping to contribute to alleviating the problems and so on. But from my professional background as a social worker, when you have to do an intervention, you don't only look at the person or the individual, right? When you look at them, yes, you help to empower them through educating them and training them and so on. But those persons or that person exists in an environment, right? They exist in an environment when they became dysfunctional. So you have to intervene at the level of the environment too, right? And then you have to look at the relationship between person and environment. But I said that to say that we have to turn our attention to the environment in Guyana. Things need to be done. For example, the ERC operates and the religious community to operate in Guyana within a certain political context where you have a winner-take-all Westminster system, right? Where it's basically ethnic groupings competing against each other. Whoever wins takes all, right? So don't care it doesn't matter how much you educate in these things. The system, right, is not one of cooperation, but one of competition. Unless we can change that, then, we're not really going anywhere. What is the religious community is position on this thing, right? In terms of the winner take um, Westminster system that we have? Are they bringing their influence to bear on that? What about if we turn our attention to the economy, right? Africans and Amerindians have about less than 5% of the economy. The majority of it is owned by Indians, Chinese, Portuguese, and other Europeans, right? So we have an imbalance going on. Where is the religious communities' position? What are they doing? Are they bringing their influence to bear on these things? Right? We have to um, adjust the environment in which we're operating. Right? So I wanted to just leave that with
Thank you,
our
Ms. Crawford, for
viewers.
that. Certainly, that will probably be on another discourse, another place and time. We can talk about that in another place and time. Thanks for sharing your perspective on that there. Mr. Hussein, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Go ahead.
Very, very interesting dialogue, conversation this evening. And of
Thank you.
course, it opens the door for much more. 1 hour space and time is just a small speck in the ocean. But indeed, from a religious perspective, religious leaders do have a role to play in bringing people together. Uh, he was Pastor Smith then, the Central Assemblies in East Street. And I can remember in 2008 when he was in a group, and he specifically said, when it comes to human rights, we will embrace the sinner, but we will not condone the sin. And I would tend to agree with him that there must be some degree of, respect as it relates to when it comes to scriptures and laws that in people's faith, as the case may be. Sometimes those laws might violate human rights. And next year, there's a human rights organization almost close to faith-based is coming to Guyana to do a research. And I'll give you that much to talk about religion, homosexuality, and abortions and so forth. Why can't Guyana have same-sex marriage in these days? That's where we're heading. And sometimes when these issues arise, faith-based organizations tend to shut up, build a wall, and pull back. But the thing is, when it comes to unity in terms of the ethnic issue, racial issues, and so forth, indeed, religious leaders have to stand firm in whatever they do from a religious perspective. And the thing is, we cannot deny when it comes to the laws of religion. Whilst they might not want to impose laws on the general country or general population, these laws must be respected of why certain things can't be tolerated. And that's why we reach out to each other, and so we may get to know each other. When we don't get to know each other, then we have the conflict. And I firmly believe in education, education, education. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much there, Mr. Nizam. Pastor Mariah or Robbie, I think.
Yeah, I just want to conclude as you wrap up. In addition to what has been said, I think religious leaders can play an integral role. An example is Desmond Tutu with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa in the 90s. I think, and this applies to our Ethnic Relations Commission, where religious leaders can encourage that it be bipartisan and an independent commission, and that is not weaponized by any as indicated by Mr. Our colleague a while ago, so that no political party will have the ability in the future anytime to weaponize the Ethnic Relations Commission to accomplish its own purpose. I think if religious leaders can play a role in that area, then the commission can also grow from strength to strength in exploring areas and presenting opportunity for transparency in employment, in equal employment opportunities. So in restorative justice, something that can play an integral part in our respective communities that can improve ethnic relations in Guyana.
All right. Thank you there for tonight's discussion. Each panelist brought a unique perspective here. Mrs. George stressed the importance of holding, organization and religious organization accountable. Pandit Prasad stressed the importance of, religion, that religious leaders do have a role to play in nation building, in healing. And so this Mr. Kaffer did also mention share his perspective, how the environment, the social milieu has a lot to do with, your worldview, how you look at the world. And we have to tackle some of these major issues from an environmental perspective of how a person grows up in their environment. And Mr. Nizam shared his view on education. He stressed education and having a need to educate our citizenry. So I'm kind of impressed, encouraged, and hopeful that we can come back here and share some stories of success. So, Pastor, thank you all. Thank you to our viewing audience in Guyana and in the diaspora. We're going to be back here again tomorrow at 8 p.m. with some other guests. I hope you joined us, and I hope you share our live to your friends and family, so we can have a healthy and a civil debate, discussion on matters that are important to all of us. So, Pastor Mariah, you can close off, and I'm thankful again to be a part of SAP and be your humble moderator this evening.
Well, thank you, Mr. Etwaru and Mr. Rajugado. We like to express gratitude to you as well as all of our panelists, Mr. Khalifa, Ms. George, Mr. Hussain Asim, Pandit Deodat, and the Honorable Minister who did present previously. As well as our audience, we want to apologize once again for the issue with our password. Tomorrow night, we are going to have another opportunity to engage some of our, you'll have an opportunity to engage some of our presidential candidates at 7 p.m. Presidential candidate, Mrs. Amanza Walton Deshear, and at 8 p.m., presidential candidate for APNU Coalition and the opposition leader, Mr. Aubrey Norton. Our moderators are going to be Dr. Yonet Semple Dorna and Pastor Wendell Jeffrey. Thank you very much to all our tech team and our SAP team members and those who are on YouTube. We appreciate you, and do have a blessed evening and take care and pray for your loved ones. And we pray that Guyana will live up to its full motto and full potential in one nation, one people, one destiny. Until then, let's continue to work with each other for a better and brighter Guyana.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. Dr. Lowe. Dr. Lowe. Dr. Lowe, are you there? Ella Chan, are you there? How are you?
I'm okay. I'm good.